Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Ben Pfeiffer and I'm joined by a guest today, my buddy Derek Draft and Stash Parker. As if you're this is not a podcast, you're all watching on video. You can see his wonderful mustache. But Derek, otherwise, let's stop objectifying him. He covers the NBA draft and the Thunder at Sports Illustrated, and he is a friend of the show. So Derek, how's it going today?
I'm doing good, man. We are in like the absolute middle of the basketball season right now. We've got NBA, college, international play still going. I'm excited to talk some ball.
Are you hyped for the Jace Richardson Carter Bryant dunk contest? I feel like the only good part of the dunk contest today is that like the rando rookies they pick cater to draft sickos like us. So I'm like, hey, on my I complained about it on TikTok and I was like, I'm excited to see Carter Bryant. Everyone's like, why are you excited to see Carter Bryant?
I'm definitely excited. I mean, these are obviously two of the higher profile athlete guys from last year. So like you said, like, would you prefer to have like the A-list S tier athletes in the NBA? Sure. But for us, guys that have a lot to do with these incoming rookies, super fun.
I understand most people are not going to care, but I will care. I'm actually not even going to be in town to watch it, but I'm sure it'll be wonderful and disappointing as always. But I asked y'all for draft takes. I didn't want to limit it to hot takes this time, just kind of whatever you're simmering on. We got a ton of responses. Thank y'all for all the support as always. And Derek and I are going to run through and buy and sell your takes. So Derek, let's get into it. Like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff that we have to say because we're YouTubers. But we got a lot of questions about Illinois freshman Katon Waggler. At ABFC77 says Katon Waggler will be a top 3 rookie next season. At K Cloven says Waggler is the 5th best prospect. At NDY Carrier says Waggler is 3rd. At Brooklyn Nets 85 says Waggler 5+ time All-Star. That wasn't even all of the Waggler takes I got. But Derek, I just kind of wanted to start this. I guess if there's any of these that specifically resonate you, but it's like, how are you feeling about Katon Waggler, who is undeniably one of, if not the biggest and fastest meteoric prospect risers of this like mid-cycle, I guess we'd call it?
Yeah, obviously I looked at the comments beforehand. I did want to say before we jump into it, generally, I didn't think anything was like outlandish. So if I disagree with anything, it's not from a place of like, trying to talk down on anyone. Like, I think there's a lot of really good takes in here. Katon Waggler specifically, I've tried this year to be really, really like pointedly about defense. So in like making my own rankings and doing scouting reports and all types of things.
The Thunder ties will do that too.
Exactly. I'm like fully Thunder pilled. Like I just watched them build one of the greatest defensive rosters of all time and win the championship with it. So I'm very incensed with defense right now. Katon Waggler is like testing the boundaries of that right now because he's so good offensively. There are some defensive concerns, but none to the point where you would like be out on a player like this immediately. So really, really good. Obviously, I mean, the top tier stuff stands out. I think succeeding on this specific version of Illinois is really, really exciting because there were a lot of other, potential draft guys and still are there. And for him to kind of rise to the top in a really tough Underwood system and gain his trust is pretty phenomenal. I like the profile. The fact that he can shoot the crap out of the ball is really, really fun. Some of this for me is maybe a little bit too much. Like 3rd best rookie next season. I don't know that I see that. I don't know that I see 5-time All-Star.
Yeah.
That's really, really hard to do. Like this is stuff that is like S tier stuff, but in the same breath to my earlier comments, I just wouldn't be like completely nonplussed if this happened. Like he's obviously very, very talented. So I'm rising with everybody else on Waggler. Super fun. I'm probably not at this point yet.
Yeah. I suppose I'm technically selling all 4 of these that I read, but I'm not selling on Katon Waggler. I just kind of, I don't know. I think obviously the most reasonable one to me is Waggler is the 5th best prospect. I think I have him right now in a tier that goes from like 6 to 9 or 6 to 10. So if you said 6, I would have been like, hell yeah, let's go. I have a hard time seeing him over Caleb Wilson or Kingston Flemings for me at the moment, but I've definitely come around on Waggler. I always liked him. Like from the first time I watched him this season, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a dude. And then people kept putting him in the top 10 and I'm like, really? And then the more you watch, I am warming up to it. It's almost like a too good to be true kind of profile with the way that he's shooting the three off the dribble and like the almost 3 assists to turnover on like pretty solid usage, just the crazy stuff that he's doing. And have you seen any like high school or AAU shooting numbers from him? Because I haven't been able to find any that are reliable.
I have not. I've seen some coaches talk about the fact that he can shoot and has like long been a really good 3-point shooter, but I haven't seen any concrete numbers. No.
Yeah, I mean, as is the case with most of these guys, especially Waggler, since like most of these players I've been aware of for 5-6+ years. A lot of the ones who were like big time, or seniors in college, big time high school recruits. Waggler, I had no idea who he was until he stepped on the floor at Illinois.
Yeah.
So that's definitely a missing piece for me. I think evaluating shooting is tough, and taking in like as much data going back to high school is something that I value and do. And for Katon, I'm just like, well, the data we have, 11 threes per 100, 43%, 81% from the line. Doesn't take a ton of mid-range jumpers, but also like I don't care that much because he's not inefficient or anything. And it's a sparkling profile. And I think the sell to me for Katon kind of reminds me of the sell for Kon Knippel. It's like a freaky wing-sized shooter with crazy feel and processing speed, but might lack like requisite athletic tools. And obviously we saw Kon went higher. And I think Kon was probably a better prospect and a better athlete. And obviously he's like better at a lot of the things that Katon is good at. Kon was special as a prospect. And obviously we've seen it during his rookie season. But yeah, I did want to touch on the defense because like from what you've seen, are you actually like that terribly concerned with his defense? Because obviously the stock numbers are low, but I watch him and I don't particularly think of him. You kind of mentioned it earlier. Like I certainly don't think his defense is disqualifying.
Yeah, I think the only reason I even bring up defense is because we're talking about him within the context of like Caleb Wilson.
Oh, I think it's extremely. I think you got to bring it up for sure.
Yeah, like if you're comparing him to, tier 1 or tier 2, I think it just has to be taken into account. And all these other names are just drastically better. Like all the other guys in this other tier are just like good to elite at defense. Whereas Waggler, I think, can eventually be a wash. So that's a different conversation. I as well probably have him in that, 6 to 10 range. Concern, no. But again, when we're talking about him within the context of tier 1 or 2, I think you have to bring it up. And I don't love it. I think like the processing stuff helps in a very Knippel-esque way. I think he was built a lot better, Kon Knippel, like to withstand, NBA guards and wings and things like that. Waggler's just a little slighter, but in the same way that Kon Knippel was just immensely smart and could position himself and do things like that, I think Waggler will be able to do that as well. What do you actually see him as positionally in the NBA? Because I feel like that's a fair question at this point with Waggler, given that he was doing wing stuff.
I'm describing him as like a wing handler, like a wing initiator type, because I don't think I want him guarding point guards. And I'm still not sure I'm comfortable with him as like a full-time lead guard because he really isn't that exceptional of an advantage creator. Like he's an exceptional shot maker and he seems to be able to get his shots off from any angle he wants, but like that's going to be even harder at the NBA level. And the lack of easy advantage creation against even like a lot of switches, I think he'll struggle to get by. Does concern me at least somewhat when we're talking about the like high end projections. And like you kind of said, I think when we're talking about these elite prospects, like if you're going to be an elite prospect, especially in an elite class like this, you either need to have like the offensive engine, MVP level upside, or have legitimate two-way star upside, like I think Caleb Wilson or Kingston Flemings definitely has kind of showcased at this point. And I struggle to see where Waggler gets that, but I also think his defense is like pretty good, and it wouldn't shock me at all if he was like totally fine and just not really thought about in the league. Like he moves pretty well. I think he tries hard. I don't think it's like an effort problem necessarily. Yeah. He's not like a crazy instinctual player and isn't like making out of area rotations, but I think he mostly does what is asked of him. He's also very physical, which I appreciate. Like the frame is an obvious concern, and who knows how much muscle he can actually add with how skinny he is, but he's 18. He's super young. So I don't want to get so hung up on that. And when I'm thinking about projecting these skinny guys forward, I like guys that are physical. Like I think of players like, I don't know, like Zaire Williams, who really wasn't super physical and didn't like initiating contact. That was kind of like a Reese Share issue I had as well. But Katon like wants to hit people, and I respect that, even if he's usually punching above his weight class.
Yeah, I feel like, you hit the nail on the head where there's a good chance in 4 years we're not even talking about his defense because there's just nothing notable there on like the negative end. Again, just in terms of comparing him to like Caleb Wilson or putting him third ahead of guys like Caleb Wilson, it's a tough sell for me.
For sure. Yeah. And like I can get it if you really think he has that like offensive engine potential. I'm not there yet with him, but hey, there's still, 10 plus games of tape, around 10ish or maybe fewer, obviously, depending on tournament games of tape to get on Waggler. So yeah, definitely TBD. But I'm trending towards being okay with the buy on some of these, but I'm definitely still a little lower. But ultimately, can't complain too much. Katon is awesome, and I understand why people are infatuated with him. How tall do you think he actually is?
I would say 6'5".
6'6". I think 6'4", 6'5" was my thought, which is fine. But that's just like how I've been thinking about it in my head, at least trying to like. I don't think he's 6'6" or 6'7" like he's listed at some places. But
yeah, I would say 6'5" without shoes probably, which is, I mean, that's great.
Yeah. All right, next we have a couple questions relating to AJ Dybantsa. At EG Hoops says Caleb Wilson over Dybantsa, which is something I see pretty commonly now. Again, I didn't say hot takes. I just said takes. And then Sanjiv Iyer 10. I'm gonna apologize once for everyone's at that I butcher. AJ Dybantsa will have a draft fall (parentheses 5 to 8), similar to Ace Bailey did by draft night due to his shot diet and his defense. So let's look at the first one. Caleb Wilson over Dybantsa. Where are you at on this? Because I actually have a pretty strong opinion on this at the moment, but I'm curious to see what you think.
Yeah, I want to start with I like both of these prospects a lot. I think Caleb Wilson is really, really good. The stuff the other night against Boozer, really, really fun. I don't have them in the same tier. I don't know that I can get there.
We agree here.
I just think Dybantsa is, S tier athlete. I don't see, just to mix this in with the second take as well, I just don't see people kind of hedging their bets on him come draft time. Like when he's on the board and you're looking at a 6'9" athlete that is this good, that is scoring 24 points per game, even with like some of the decision making and defense questions that pop up, like the good is simply too good with AJ Dybantsa. And that's not to say that Caleb Wilson isn't an awesome prospect. I just touched on defense and he's more defensively slanted, but I just think the high end of AJ Dybantsa is exactly what NBA teams are looking for in the modern NBA. And I think he's that guy, quite simply.
It is, to me, an undeniable basketball truth that defense is very important and it matters, but it's also an undeniable basketball truth that the best offensive players in the world are always more individually impactful than the best defensive players in the world. It's just the nature of basketball. You have less control as an individual on defense because you don't have the basketball. And any impact metric on it, basically anything will bear this out. And while I think Caleb certainly has the potential to reach like sub-all-star, very good starter level outcomes as an offensive player, I very much struggle to see the world where he's like an offensive superstar, like I think Boozer or Peterson or Dybantsa can definitely be. Like Wilson, for all of Caleb Wilson's greatness, like he can't shoot or dribble. He simply cannot shoot or dribble the basketball, and I'm not taking someone in the top 3 like that in a class like this. I'm sorry. Like I like Caleb Wilson, but it is alarming to me how much of his self-created shot diet is really difficult shots where he has to rely on his touch and his leaners and his step throughs. It's like for the level of athlete that Caleb Wilson is, I don't think you can maybe spin this to like, that kind of indicates some potential. But I think things like ball handling and like scoring feel and touch are very hard to develop. And Caleb, I think the far two shooting is definitely the kind of best argument for him being a shooter long term. But I think the actual 3-point shooting sample is very concerning. And like I said, cannot create an advantage on the perimeter consistently against like size defenders pretty much at all. Like I see him pretty much kind of maxing out offensively as maybe a second, third best offensive player, not even on a championship team, just like on a good, successful team. And that's no slight, especially when I would imagine you also are quite high on Caleb's defense. I mean, it's hard not to be. He's phenomenal on that end, does ridiculous things. And it wouldn't shock me if he was getting defensive player of the year votes within the first couple of years of his career. And like, in a lot of drafts, I think that's a fine number 1 pick. But in this draft, where there's, to me, 3 guys with legitimate like MVP level offensive potential, I just can't endorse, even with AJ Dybantsa's recent struggle, which like I somewhat sympathize, but think people are ultimately missing the forest for the trees. And I think it's maybe possible that like one of Wilson or like Fleming sneaks over one of the top 3. I would be completely stunned if Dybantsa. I would be shocked. I don't think it's possible. I think I've kind of long thought of Ace or Dybantsa as like the kind of player that the people who thought Ace was like better than Cooper is. Like that's who you wanted Ace to be, and that is AJ Dybantsa.
For sure. Yeah, I think Ace is just not quite the same player to me as Dybantsa. Like that's what you wanted, like you said, that's what you wanted Ace to be. I just don't see, again, NBA decision makers seeing AJ Dybantsa on the board and being wary for many reasons. Like you see that name pop up, and sure, like we can dive into the negatives all day with Dybantsa. There have been some, and I will concede that. But when you look at the positives, they're pretty glaring too, in terms of what if we did get a 6'9" guy that could create his own shot at the drop of a hat and score at all 3 levels? And what if he did add a little bit more passing to his game and better defense? Like the tools that he's working with, I think, are some of the best I've seen besides Victor Wembanyama, in the last like 5 years.
They're just unique too. It's just like the way it's not like he's not like a Men Thompson or like Ben Simmons in terms of like just pure like explosiveness and pop. Yeah. It's just like the way he moves, flexibility, coordination. I agree with you that like all of that is truly S tier stuff. In maybe ways that aren't like traditional run jump athleticism. Obviously, he's a great run jump athlete, but he's not as good as, I don't know, like I said, like an Amen Thompson or someone like that.
And Caleb Wilson, you can make that argument too. I'm with you in that you're way further away from adding those things to his game. Like you would much rather want to add 3-point volume and a little more defense as opposed to dribbling the ball and taking threes in general. So again, both really good prospects, but I just have Dybantsa higher, and I don't quite see myself really getting to the point where Wilson can go ahead of him.
I agree. And very simply, AJ is one of few giant freshmen averaging, putting up a 30 plus usage, 60 plus true shooting. Like that is just not normal stuff, being able to be that efficient on that level of usage. And though he definitely has some, struggles against, I think maybe his best game of the year was that recent Houston game against an excellent Houston defense. He had a pretty good game to me against UConn earlier in the season, who has a pretty solid defense. I do think while definitely I have some high level concerns with like his processing, and I definitely sympathize with the people who like very firmly have Boozer or Peterson over him for those like feel and defensive concerns, even if I have them closer. But I think Dybantsa is like definitely closer to 1 than he is to 4 for me.
Yeah, I agree. I would imagine NBA decision makers feel similarly right now.
Just about guarantee it.
Yeah. The only way I can really see, and again, this is conjecture, this is not me having sources of any sort, but the only way I see Wilson really cracking the top 3 is if someone wants to swing on, the really high end talents in Peterson and Dybantsa 1 and 2. And then that third team just doesn't value athleticism as much. And Boozer slips to 4 and Wilson goes 3. Yeah. Even then,
that's kind of my thought as well.
Even then, that still feels to me like a long shot, but that's the pathway, I feel like.
But yeah, it's less about being crazy low on Caleb. Like I still have him 4th. Sure. I think he's like very clearly a step above. He and Fleming's maybe are the other 2. But let's kind of move on to. I'm actually gonna skip around for a second. Because it relates, @_getting_buckets says, there is a huge gap, like 2 tiers, separating the consensus 5 of this draft, Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, AJ Dybantsa, Kingston Flemings, Caleb Wilson, to the rest of this class. I included this take because this is about where I'm at. I don't know if it's a 2-tier gap. Like I do think there are some legit players in that kind of mid-late lottery tier. Like I love Phylon. I'm still high on Mikey Brown. I think Quaintance is an interesting wild card. But yeah, I do think at this point, the only guy to me who I think could jump in there if he just plays out of his mind the rest of the year, like we talked about, is Waggler. Because he has kind of the special feel, processing, shot making, touch stuff that I look for in projecting offensive stars. But yeah, I kind of do think that at the moment there's a pretty large drop off between those consensus 5. And I think those consensus 5 are the top 5 players in this draft, but it's still strong after that. I just don't think like after that, it gets to like, you have normal lottery picks, you know?
Yeah, I'm with you. I as well think those are the 5. I do think Waggler's inching his way pretty close to including him with that group, at least in the Flemings tier. I will say, I don't think when it's all said and done that this will be the case. Like, I think in 5 years, we're not going to say there was a huge gap between those 5. I think right now it's about finding out who is actually going to be there, which is obviously not what you want to hear from a draft pod. You want to hear, hey, who is good? But I don't think the gap is going to end up wide. I think right now it looks that way because of who's there. So,
right. I mean, it is important to talk about, right? Because we're not talking about, I don't think I'm not saying when I think there's a huge gap in, between these 5, I'm not saying like these 5 are going to have the best, most successful, longest careers. Like there's no correct answer or one answer of what best or a successful draft outcome looks like, right? And there's obviously many ways that prospects developments can go. We're thinking about ranges of outcomes and scenarios. So there's lots of players who I rank highly. And if you maybe make like a list of median outcome careers, I'd probably have much lower. And some players who I rank lower that I'd probably have much higher because I don't, value their high end traits as much, for example, but I think they're pretty safe. And there's obviously players like that and the other way in pretty much every draft. But I do think at the moment, I do agree with this. However, even between now and June is a long time and a lot can happen. I don't usually I move around stuff on my board all the time, but I don't make tier jumps as frequently. And I have done that with, I think Flemings is pretty much the only one I've really done into that top tier from that second, mid lottery tier. So it is possible. Like I said, things change, players get hurt, players rise after the draft. It always happens. So while I do definitely buy that is my consensus top 5 group of prospects at the moment, I also will understand and keep in mind that lots can change and that as much as we think we know, we really don't know shit, do we?
For sure. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it's a 2-tier gap. Like I think after this, it just becomes normal. Like we don't see superhumans every other pick, which is fine. That's great.
It's like I'm pretty happy with like Mikey Brown at like 7-8 in most drafts. Like I think 100%. That's a great spot for him, generally speaking. Phylon as well in that range. Like I'm probably, maybe in like 2022 I could have got those. You can get those guys up to like the top of the draft. But curious how this is kind of an aside. How would you rank Dylan Harper, Flemings, and Wilson as prospects?
Ooh. I would have Harper at the top. I think his size is quite a bit better than the other two. His feel just feels slightly better. I guess it's really just his combination that jumps out to me the most. I'm still struggling with Flemings and Mikey Brown right now.
Oh, no. I said Harper, Caleb Wilson, and Flemings.
Oh. Harper, Caleb Wilson, and Flemings.
Because these are
I thought we were going guards.
These are I'm being confusing. These are the 3 prospects over the last 2 drafts that I've had in my like could be a solid number 1 pick in a weaker draft tier, basically. And I go back and forth on how I order these 3. I think I have Harper first, but I honestly could see the case for Wilson too.
I think I just value like downhill driving so much for a guard. Like it's so hard. I'm such a fan of Dylan Harper and will probably remain so.
He's sick already.
That kind of just transfers over to Flemings as well. But again, like if we're looking at 24, all 3 of these guys go number 1, I think.
Easy.
Caleb Wilson goes number 1 by like a country mile. It's not even close. So I like all of them. It's no slight to like, Darren Peterson or AJ Dybantsa more than
I think guys. Sar, like my top prospects in that 2024 draft, like Sar or Ron Holland are like probably the first guys that I take off the board after the top 5, basically. Like I think everyone in my top 5, at least at the moment, is like no doubt about it, number 1 pick. But hey, again, it shows how variable and how different all of these things can be, right?
For sure. For sure.
Okay, this
I
one's
as well
funny.
had
Okay.
Holland and Sarr, by the way, at number 1.
Hmm?
I as well had Holland and Sarr number 1, tied for number 1 in 24.
Yeah, I think I had Sarr for like most of the cycle and then flipped it at the end, and I still feel fine about that. But that draft is going to be like the curve is just going to be like this from that
Yeah.
draft. Well, I think there's so many guys you could argue as like the number 1 in the redraft. But speaking of draft classes, this one I laughed at, but I actually do have a serious kind of related take at Bugate Kate. Again, apologies. The media is downing the 2027 draft to increase the hype and engagement for the 2026 NBA draft. Derek, have you been getting faxes and checks from big 2026 draft just like I have?
I've been cashing my checks. I'm rolling in it, as you can see. I really don't keep up with future classes. My brain can really only handle so much information. So if I try to add hundreds more prospects, it just wouldn't work. I just don't think it's as nefarious as this, obviously. Like, I don't think this is how people work.
I'm obviously selling this take, but I'm kind of buying the idea that the 2027 draft is getting underrated and that people are too confident in what the draft's going to look like. And I say this as someone who's like spent a shitload of time studying all of the prospects throughout high school. And I have said plenty that, like, again, based on my interpretations of these prospects, I view the 2027 draft as pretty weak. Guess what? It's February 2026. We've got a long way to go until the 2027 class. And while I agree that probably not going to be any, no doubt about it, blue chip guys, maybe Stokes if you can like get it together. Aside from, like we've had over the last couple of drafts, that doesn't mean players are going to emerge. I think the fact that this is such a loaded freshman class and we are in the NIL era means that we are going to get a probably 6 returner class of sophomores. And we've seen plenty of those guys break out, especially guards, John Morant, Tyrese Halliburton, I think Phylon this year, potentially like break out and become legitimate blue chip prospects. So I would caution people who are just like already locked in on the 2027 draft being awful, because with all of my available information, I currently believe that. But I don't have all of the available information. There's so much more that is going to be formed. And there are players I like in that draft. Like, I think it's decently deep with players. I'm like, yeah, I'm into them as potential NBA prospects. Like Dylan Mingo is awesome. He just can't stay healthy. Bruce Branch, who reclassed, is quite good as well. Like Jordan Smith's going to be good. I think JJ Andrews is going to be good. Anthony Thompson is going to be good. It's a solid class, but yeah, I personally have not been taking money to push 2026 draft propaganda. But if anybody who does that would like to, my email is in the description. But anyways, let's get to the.
I also only heard about how good 26 was going to be for so long, and people were right on that one. I will say true. They were fully correct.
Very true. Yeah, and like I said, we can definitely. I think we're probably better at calling good drafts than bad drafts, just because it's more likely for. I think it's harder to predict someone, coming out of nowhere and breaking out. But I'm definitely thinking about this more in this current college basketball landscape that just changes the decision-making so much for these young players where, once upon a time, if you're getting late first round feedback as you're a freshman or a sophomore, you're gone. That's it. You're going to the league. But now these players can make decisions that don't really compromise their financial ability in life as much as they used to, which honestly, for the draft, can have real benefits, because I think players I think the idea that like the NBA does not develop players is wrong and oversimplified, but players in the NBA do not develop as rapidly or like they can in college. Like it's just better for players to get the reps in college against that group, because they're not going to have the same runway and leash in the NBA unless you're one of very few guys. But anyways,
to that end as well, I would be stunned if there's not multiple names that we think are absolute locked in bona fide 26 draft picks that go back. Even guys 100%. That we'd be surprised of now. Like
100%.
with this take in mind of like, we know that the NIL is going to change things. I bet there's some names that still shock us. So yeah, fully agree.
Cameron Boozer going back.
Sophomore Cameron Boozer is going to feed families.
Cameron Boozer going back and being the lock 2027 number 1 pick honestly kind of moved me. It's not going to happen. Obviously not going to happen. But We got a couple questions about Texas wing Dalen Swain. At GYB, haha says Dalen Swain has all-star upside. At Neva Hezi Ghost says Dalen Swain is top 15, maybe top 10. He can great for others to defend. Shot looks slightly slow, but I like the form to be even better in the pros. Joshua W033, bunch of numbers, says Dalen Swain should go lotto or will be lottery level good. So what are your thoughts on these Dalen Swain takes?
I like Dalen Swain a lot. Like everybody else on the planet, it feels like he's uniting the eye test analytical folks one by one. Really, really good. I think I guess first I should say, I'm not going to vehemently argue against anybody thinking that a 6'8" wing that can handle like this has all-star upside. I think there's merit to that.
Yeah.
I am going to sell that take because I think the pathway to be that is really narrow with his specific three-point shooting. Not only the fact that the numbers aren't good, but the shot form does not move me a lot. And I know funky shot forms have been fine in the past, but his is pretty funky. I will say I can get to the point where I would take him lottery, I think, if it's for the right team. He's just such a good player. Like he has some of the flash that I think you could maybe garner some all-star looks down the line if he really hit like the highest end development, but more so he just does all the in-between stuff that NBA teams are going to love. So I like Dalen Swain a lot. I would probably sell all-star, but buy him as a player in general.
Yeah, I can totally buy him like returning lottery value one day. And I'll say like the top, I think I have him like 16, 17. So I will totally buy the top 15 Dalen Swain take, even though there's someone like Draft Twitter who are crazy high on him because of the slashing upside, which I kind of understand. He's a ridiculous driver for that size. Like his handle is so crazy and he is so flexible. Like he can get beneath even like wings and like smaller wings and guards, their shoulder blades, and like dislodge them and get to the rim. It's really, really impressive. But I wish I liked his passing more. Like, I think it's solid, but to me, if you're going to be like an elite wing initiator as a slasher like that, I think you need to be a crazy high level passer too if you're not going to shoot. And I'm not really buying Swain's shot much at all. Like, it's fine. It wouldn't shock me if he's a guy who, you know, if you leave him open, he'll punish you. But it would probably shock me if he's like a difference-making on-ball shot maker as an initiator. And I don't think his defense has been like that amazing this year, but it's been better in the past. And his usage is obviously way up from any other time in his career. I think that matters a good bit. But easy to see ways that he can be really impactful on defense when he's playing with a higher motor.
Yeah, I think there's so many ways that he can just meld into NBA lineups, like whether it's scoring the ball, slashing, doing just all kinds of funky on-ball stuff. He's really good. I agree with you in that it feels like one or two puzzle pieces are missing for him to be like a guy. And while those puzzle pieces can be found and have been found for some other prospects like this, it feels like he maybe has a little further ways to go than others. Like again, the three-point shot to me is really far off. I agree with the passing take. Like if he has this level of handle and maneuverability getting downhill, you would really like to be, if he could like to see him like use that, and he just doesn't as much as you want. So
he had a think like he had a crazy like lay down pass on a drive in that Kentucky game. And like if you watch that Kentucky game, you're like, oh yeah, this is a top 5 pick.
Yeah.
So I can definitely understand to that extent. He had one pass in that game where he got to the rim. I think he maybe driving baseline, and he's able to just like sneak it through a tight window. And like, where is that? Where is all of that? Because sometimes I often will find him being kind of like, he just like gets into the paint. He's like, all right, I'm going to jump off of 2 feet and like crash into someone and draw a foul or finish. Like oftentimes it works, which I get it. He's a sick athlete and incredibly physically imposing, but yeah, I think these are limitations to me that keep him from being a top 10 plus level prospect in a really strong draft class. But I think he's almost certainly going to be undervalued unless he's one of these players who has a huge draft rise. I don't think he has like top 15, top 20 level buzz from most like mainstream mocks and boards that I've seen. So I think Swain is on track, assuming he declares. Because again, who knows? I'm pretty sure he's still, Bartorvik says he still has sophomore eligibility, which I don't understand because he's played 3 full seasons. But who knows these days?
Yeah, especially on the rankings. Again, this is all so contextual to 26. Like he feels like he could have been at maybe like the J-Dub level back in a draft like that, climb to 12. But in this class specifically, that's so tough to do because, I mean, in that range, you're going up against like legitimate blue chip, true freshman studs. So it's tough.
It is tough, but I do think that there is a chance he gets there. Like, it wouldn't shock me if he is one of these inevitable late draft risers because he is crazy impressive physically and he does some wild stuff with basketball for his size. But even if some of these Swain takes are a little hot for me, I'm definitely kind of buying the direction of the opinions for sure.
Yep, agree.
All right, let's go to next ones. At Nick DeQuick with a 1 instead of the first I. I think Yakel Linderberg is the 5th best player in the class. So Yakel Linderberg, Michigan win. I definitely don't. As we've talked about, I certainly sell this take considering we talked about our top 5. But I've seen a good amount of hype for Yakel in like the top 10 specifically. And I'm curious to see where you are on this. Obviously, he's an older player on a very good college team who has great metrics. So I don't know if I'm currently I certainly am not at top 5 with Yakel, but where are you at on him in this take in general?
I'm not at top 5. I would consider myself in the camp of Yakel believers for sure, though. The age typically would really deter me, like if he was this old in this class specifically. The fact that he has risen so quick from JUCO, though, and just like figured it out at absolutely every level has been really impressive to me. I think it is bound to transfer over to the NBA, given just how malleable he is, like in terms of, he can play on the wing. He's doing that for Michigan right now. He can play the 4. I think there's like potential for small ball 5 in moderation. So I really like Yakel. Again, 5th, I don't think there's any way. I don't think NBA teams would even really put him in position to end up saying he was the 5th best prospect 10 years from now. But really, really love Yakel Linderberg.
I'd be okay with him 5th and like 2022 or 2024 really. But the age thing to me matters in that like it's not going to make him a top 5 player because being like a superstar from a young age is such an important indicator. But age is just like a proxy for like development and development curves, right? And like you kind of alluded to, Yakel not only has been a star at pretty much every level, but he's done it at different stops and in different ways. Like he is such a vastly different player than he was his first and even his second year at UAB, where his first year at UAB, he was kind of like a, still higher than now, but lower usage, like power forward defensive specialist. And then his second year, I think he added more playmaking, got a little bit leaner, but still was playing in like this face-up driver plus defensive anchor role, right? And now at Michigan, he's like a floor spacing, he's like a stretch 4 basically, who drives on the perimeter and plays on the wing. It's pretty awesome the way that he's able to excel in multiple roles. And I think that's something I value a lot. And the fact that he's consistently improving means that, 24 is not the end of life. People improve at things after their 24th birthday. And I think Yakel could definitely be one of those players. But I do have some concerns with him. I wish I felt better about his shot. Like it's good. But if we look at the career numbers, at least not counting the JUCO stuff, he's at 32% on 202 threes, and his per 100 numbers have never been that great. 8.2%, 8.2 per 100 this year is pretty great. But obviously, that's his career numbers are being carried by this last year bump at Michigan. His free throw shooting has taken a jump this year, which is nice, but of course, small samples, so we'll have to see. And I think he's kind of like a little stiff on defense, which does worry me occasionally. I think you'll see him get blown by, and he rarely gets asked to like defend one-on-one in a system like Michigan runs, and there aren't a ton of, the NBA is not like filled with lots of one-on-one matchups all the time, but that does matter, especially in the playoffs, even if, the one-on-oneness of the playoffs even I think is overstated. And the fact that he is scalable and can do a lot of things will be much more important for him than that. But yeah, I just struggle to see. I think some people have kind of labeled Yakel like the false ceiling guy, but I struggle to see the path, the real star breakout pathways for him, aside from the fact that I do think he's going to be like, I don't know, Keegan Murray, Cam Johnson, names that kind of come to my mind. Not like exactly the same players. Both of those were way better shooters. Just like similar molds of players who maybe on lesser teams aren't crazy valuable or impactful, but on good teams could be really, really valuable and impactful.
Yeah, honestly, it's probably going to come down to what teams want. Like if there's a bunch of teams that slip and really want to swing for the fences, then I think we could see Yakel go at like, 14, 15. If there are teams that simply want a really good basketball player for an impending playoff run, like immediately, then I think he could go, 8th, 9th. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility.
That's the tough thing about like draft rankings and doing like a big board. Like big boards are content tools. Like they don't really matter, right? Like there's certain teams, a win now team like, OKC, San Antonio, Knicks, Detroit, whoever, right? They get the 7th pick and they take Yakel. I'm not really going to bat an eye. I'm like, okay, I get that. It's like, if you're that team, you're like not considering some of these young developmental players. And then also, if Yakel goes at like 20, that's even probably at that point, it's probably like a pretty legit value for him. But it wouldn't shock me if he fell further just because, a team picking at 8 that is very far away is probably not thinking about Yakel at all because, he's going to be 28 by his extension. And like, if you're a good team, you don't really care about that. But if you're thinking about like a long timeline of a rebuild, you probably don't want to think that. And I think most of the teams picking 5th are like that and not like the crazy good teams that jump in the lottery. But hey, again, who knows? Anything can happen.
The Grizzlies selling at the deadline really stopped all my mocks that I've been doing because I was just like hammering Yakel Linderberg at 12th and 13th for Memphis because it was such an easy pick. And now I'm like, well, I guess he slips one spot to the Thunder at this point.
I think I gave him to the Thunder in the mock I did on YouTube this week. It's just like the kind of greed they speak of in the Bible. It's really, it's really fucked up. Let's go to the next question. At Zach Dworchik, I think that's how like the Scandinavian Polish type spelling says, Koa Peat's play style translating to the league is a much bigger issue than Cam Boozer's. And I promise you, I haven't been picking takes that I just agree with, obviously, but this is one that I certainly share. And I'm curious where you're at on Koa, because I feel like I'm a lot lower than consensus.
I think I'm lower than consensus. I also appreciate what he does. Like I appreciate the talent that he brings. He's really, really good at a lot of things. On this take specifically, I agree. It's like, sure, but also in the context of the draft,
I kind of was using this as more of just a place to talk about Koa than to actually,
sure.
I mean, obvious. I think like there are dumb people who think Cam Boozer's like, oh, he's Jaleel Okafor, he's Marvin Bagley. And it's like, okay. It's like, okay, man, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, again, Koa Peat, yes, he is going to have a harder time translating to the NBA, but this is also the difference in like a top 10 prospect and a top 1 to 2 to 3 prospect. So I like Koa. Again, I think there's some real pathways to him being like a legit guy, but much like, I guess I would tie this back into like the Caleb Wilson talk. He feels pretty far away from those things, like in terms of the 3-point shooting. I don't know where the offensive value really comes from when he doesn't, just get into his shot, which is obviously going to happen less at the NBA level. And then defensively, I have some questions. I don't know about you. So I like Koa. I think there's pathways to him being really good. I would actually consider myself a little lower too. I know that's bad for the pod because we just keep agreeing, but
that's fine. I mean, I think I have him in like the 20s. I'd be cool with him higher than that. I just don't see him as anything more than like a solid NBA player. Like just, I think it could totally be a good like role-playing 4. And while I do agree, like I'm curious what defensive concerns you have with him, because I think his like decision-making and feel on that end can be pretty concerning. And when he has to like change directions in big space, sometimes that worries me. But like he is crazy strong. And if you ask Koa Peat just like, hey, cut off this guy laterally in a straight line, there's very few players I'd rather have than Koa. I mean, he is just a brick wall. And offensively, like he has an awesome mid-range jumper. His finishing is great. Again, I think like the craft and the decision-making, I think of him as a pretty like mid to low field player. Like he has some passing flashes. He can hit cutters. He can hit entry passes, but you very rarely to me, at least what I've seen, like breaking structure, passing against pressure, doing stuff that to me indicate like, okay, this is actually a next level playmaker and not just someone who can execute a scheme, which like good, but that is my kind of like baseline expectation. If you're playing in the NBA and you can't execute, basic scheme passes and stuff, I that's, you probably shouldn't be playing in the league, or you're like a freshman or a young player, which obviously is the case. But yeah, I see Koa definitely as a player who I think the physical tools and like the interior scoring potential and the rebounding provides him a pretty safe floor. Like I can imagine a lot of ways of him, being an impactful complementary player, but I don't really see how he gets to those high end outcomes. And again, in this class, especially when there's so many players where I can at least squint and see, okay, yeah, I can imagine a pathway or two where that player is a difference making needle moving star. Harder for me to see for Koa. And I'm not crazy on him about consensus. I'm glad that Mo Krivas is getting the buzz he deserves lately, because that guy rocks, and he's probably going to go below his value, and I think Pete's going to go way above it. But yeah, I definitely think Pete's current play style, it's just tough to be like a mid-range face-up, tough shot-making forward who doesn't shoot. And like, are these handles okay for like his role? I have to go look back at my notes, but
yeah, I think defensively, I would just like stuff to, numerically be a little better. Honestly, like I don't hate his process, but 1.5% steal percentage, 2.6 block percentage. Like I would like a little more disruption, and I think some of it's Arizona boosting some of this as well. Like Arizona's a freaking good program, obviously, the best team in the country. They're ridiculous, but
yeah,
I don't know. There's just tweaks here and there that don't necessarily jump out to me about Koa Peat.
There are, and again, like I think I definitely agree that like the steal and block numbers are so contextual, but even on tape, I think you can see places where he'll like make a decent rotation, but it's like isn't long enough or big enough, or is too much of a load leaper to get there. Or I think there's some moments where maybe he has a chance, like I'd like him to dig his arm in there, or kind of try to deflect or steal a bad entry pass or something like that. And of course it could be coaching, right? He could be coached this way. We don't know. We're not in the room. But from what we do know, I struggle to see Koa Peat as anything more than like a very good to great defender in the NBA level, which again, valuable. But we're talking about these guys with real offensive limitations, and obviously Caleb Wilson's an unfair comparison. Even his offensive limitations are much lower than Koa's. Like he is a legitimate, that's a guy who's winning defensive player of the year as a non-center. And while Koa's defense is good, it's not that good.
Yeah, totally agree.
Cool. Let's see if we can get to one where we don't agree. I don't know if we're going to have that in this one, unfortunately. But at Robin8JM says, Juke Harris should go in the first round. The kind of do-it-all big guard that could be a great player in the league. What are you thinking about Juke Harris as a potential first-round pick?
I probably need to watch more of Juke Harris, firstly, but he does feel like a guy that like we should be waving our arms about to me, of like, this dude is 6'7", 6'8"-ish, like over 21 points, super high volume of threes, a lot of free throws, tons of free throws. It's like he does in between stuff. It just feels like a guy that's going to translate to me. And even in a class like this, where we talk about how good it is, again, I can totally see first round. I buy this. I don't know how you feel.
I fucking love it. I absolutely love it. The next take is going to be one that I very strongly disagree with. But this one or at least pretty strongly. This one, fuck yeah. I don't know if I have him ranked in the exact first round right now, but like you said, it's just so easy to imagine him being one of those guys, like 6'7", legit sniper, who I don't think he has the efficiency to really back that up yet from three, but his shot diet is very tough. He takes lots of difficult pull-ups and off movement shots, great mid-range shooter. And like you said, with the foul drawing, like I think free throw rate is an important indicator for functional athleticism, strength translation. And you see that with Harris. I mentioned it with Waggler, but like Juke really wants to hit people. Like he is weak, but he will just run through people's chests constantly. And I kind of wish he'd just slow down and chill out. I feel like I consistently write in my notes when I'm watching him, like, I just need you to slow down. Like, just take a beat. The first note I have from this Texas Tech game is that he is a fly downhill, hang in air, and pray driver. And I'm like, yeah, but like he is a sick athlete. He's a sick shooter. His passing is pretty solid. I don't think he's like an amazing passer, but he's capable enough. And I think his defense is pretty nice as well. Crazy physical as well on that end. He's got nice hands and instincts. And I don't know if he's like a good enough athlete or decision maker or with the, the passing field to ever be a star in the league. But
yeah,
I mean, hell yeah, as a guy I want to bet on. It's just like a guy with a bunch of skills that I really like, is also productive and impactful. Like I think he's going to be 21 on draft night. I'll look it up right now.
He's shooting 7 threes per game right now, 7.3 3-point attempts per game, and taking 7.2 free throws. That's like nearly mathematically impossible. That's so absurd.
Ridiculous. Actually, I'm going to quickly. Yeah, he's at 51 free throw rate and 12 threes per 100. I'm curious how many others are at 12.50, because I think Waggler's above 50, but he's not above 12 threes per 100.
Yeah,
he's getting there. But okay, there's like so I'm looking at the only drafted player to hit those marks since 2008 is Damian Lillard.
Perfect.
And Yakel Brown is also there right now. And Juke Harris, obviously. Are you familiar with the name Hamad Musa?
I'm not.
I remember him being slightly. I think he's Qatari. I remember watching him in Basketball Without Borders like a couple of years ago, and his stats look kind of crazy. He's at Cal Poly now. Interesting. I'll have to take a look at that. But yeah, I think Juke. I mean, his blends of shot making, and he's not just a spot up shooter. Like he's sprinting off screens, sitting off dribble threes, and the real slashing aggression. I just love how he's wired. I absolutely love how he plays. He's physical, he's tough, and I like that.
Good positional rebounder, 1.6 steals per game. Like it's just so easy to talk yourself into Juke Harris.
It's so awesome that his threes per game number is like a pretty solid per 100 number as well. It's like if someone's taking 7 point whatever threes per 100, I'm like, oh yeah, it's pretty good. Like,
yeah,
he's doing that in a game. Crazy. But anyways, on to the next take that I said I disagree with for sure. At Row the Pro 1000 says Yakel Brown is not a top 10 pick, and guys like Fleming, Waggler, Tanner, and Phylon are all better prospects going into the NBA. I suppose the second half of that, like, it's the first half that I definitely disagree with. Like I think Fleming's is definitely better. I think Phylon and Waggler are in the same tier. I think Tanner's definitely worse. I like Tanner, but I don't think he's on Yakel's level. I mean, not to be the guy who's like, look at this one game, because that's what I feel like a lot of these people are doing. But what did Yakel Brown do the other night, right? 45, he hit 10 threes. And this is, I think shot making is so variable. Yakel has played 16 games. That last game, I believe, jumped his 3-point percentage from around 27 to 31.7. Like that is one game of 3-point attempts. And obviously it's an outlier, unbelievable game. But talk about Yakel. I mean, I'm sure the raw numbers are also crazy. 14.6 threes per 100, 52%, 52.6% free throw rate. Like it's silly. And I didn't intend this at all, but I feel like Yakel and Juke Harris have more similarities as a scorer than I maybe realized. Like they both are very aggressive, don't really have much of a decel or a stop, but obviously Yakel's thing is like he's a ridiculous passer too.
Yeah. Again, this is not overreactionary to the 45-point game, which we could probably just be overreactionary to, and it wouldn't even be that big a deal. I'm totally cool with it because I never wavered on him as a top 10 guy, even when he was slumping. So I'm going to take it. Yeah. Well, and to that end, he is going to be the absolute ultimate process over results guy. Like he is going to be the absolute poster boy for the next decade of process over results. And he's going to be mentioned in conversations when guys are having bad years because he's going to step into the NBA and the spacing, and all of the numbers that look bad right now are probably just going to get a major, major boost. And he's going to be unbelievable because that's just who he is. Like You're
telling me Yakel's going to shoot 20%. He's not going to shoot 20% on non-rim twos for the rest of his career.
I'd be stunned. I'd be stunned if that happened. I'd be stunned if the 3-point shooting numbers don't go way, way, way up, and the turnovers and all the process things are going to get better. He's a young player. He could average 5 points per game for the rest of the season and still go top 10 because NBA decision makers are going to look at this guy and say, He's got size, he's got field, he's got feel, passing ability. He shoots the absolute crap out of the ball, whether it goes in or not. So yeah, I just think he's solid as a rock in terms of like profile, I guess I would say.
Yeah. Certainly worth also noting the absurd load that he's carrying for Louisville. 30 usage and 30 assist rate is ludicrous as a freshman. I just looked it up. The only other 30 usage, 30 assist rate freshmen in Bartorvik are Fultz, Trey Young, Isaiah Collier, and Samaj Christian of Xavier in 2013, which is awesome. But yeah, Michael is like carrying a very high on-ball load, and I don't have that hard of a time projecting him to play off the ball because he is a sick off-movement shooter, and we've seen him do that forever. And this is why using the entire three-point shooting sample is so important. Like if Michael was not a good three-point shooter, not a good shooting prospect before college, and he was like this, okay, yeah, then maybe I think you can, even though again, I think I'd argue for a guy with 14 threes per 100, 82% at the line, developing as a shooter every single time, regardless of what his percentage is. You can make no threes. I don't know about no threes, but I have real concerns when it comes to Michael as like a top tier prospect in this class. Like, I don't think he has the kind of defensive ceiling that Flemings has, even though I think he has length, and I think he's made more defensive plays this year than he gets credit for, even if it's definitely going to be a while before he's able to impact the game on defense. And I think he has really improved as an athlete, and he's gotten stronger. And I think I'm like pretty convinced he's gotten taller, because I think I saw somewhere he was like 6'2" barefoot, and I feel like that's underselling him by at least an inch or an inch and a half. But the fact that he isn't just this, Devontae Graham, Bryn Forbes, 3-point only guy, even with the great passing, like he is bursty. And I don't think he's ever going to be like a crazy finisher just because he's not a nuclear athlete. He's not that strong, and his finishing craft is going to need a ton of work. But talk about a guy who's got great first step, dynamic shooting profile, and I think we're just all kind of glossing over, not like all, but we've barely even talked about the fact that he is, if not the best live dribble passers in this entire class. Like the kind of stuff that he can do with basketball and the pick and roll with both hands, crazy.
Yep. I think you touched on it. The defense is really what's going to be the separator for a lot of people. Like I can actually get, again, I think he's going to be a top 10 pick. I also think Philon's probably going to be a top 10 pick. So it's not crazy to consider a LeBaron Philon here.
The second part of this take is definitely more legit.
Yeah. So, I mean, if people had Philon over him from a defensive perspective, thinking that he was going to make more of an impact on that end, I think that makes a lot of sense. I think the measurables are going to be absolutely huge for Michael Brown. If it really does come out and he's, normal point guard size, which is fine, then I think that changes things if he's legitimately, 6'5" and still growing and things like that. So super interesting prospect for a lot of reasons. I don't see a world where I don't have him, in the 6 to 9 range as well.
Yeah, he's just a really good prospect. I found a Draft Express Instagram post from June 2024, where Michael measured in at 6'3.5" in shoes, so about 6'2" barefoot with a +4 wingspan, and that was almost 2 years ago. So I would wager that he's a little bigger and definitely stronger. I mean, the strength and functional athleticism games, you don't need to look at like the measurement. You can just watch the difference in how he plays between then and now. But wanted to get to, I think, maybe one or two more right here. At ODJ Hoops, shout out Christian, says after Duke Final Four run, Malik Brown will play his way into the first round discussion. Special defender with defensive box plus minus in the country, top DPPM in the country, high level passing skill. Where are you at on Malik Brown? Because I'm gonna be so honest. I like Malik Brown, but I have not really been thinking of him as a super serious NBA prospect. But who knows? Anyone's capable of the tournament bump.
Yeah, I was going to say the exact same thing. I watch a lot of Malik Brown. I haven't thought of him like from an NBA draft perspective, but I will say that when I watch Duke, he jumps out every single time. Like, love the way he defends without just strictly blocking shots. Like, has some of the best hands in the country. He can slide really, really well for his size. I think in this class specifically, which is what every single one of these has come back to, just how good this class is in general, it's probably an uphill battle to be especially a first rounder. But I mean, the tools are there. Like the defense again is like some of the best in the country. He's stopped several guys that have straight up just like won Duke basketball games, which is sick. I think you need some semblance of a 3-point shot to be this type of prospect. So that's kind of where I'm at with Malik Brown, but really like him.
It's to me, I think his level of scoring is unfortunately disqualifying when we're talking about him as like a potential playoff player. I have no doubt that he could fill regular season rotation minutes. He is a ludicrous defensive player who can really pass as well, but there's basically no examples of players with like sub 14 usage throughout their entire career who have really turned into capable scorers at the NBA level. I think the only two players drafted with a career usage lower are Derek Lively and Drake Powell. So it's just rare to see guys like him succeed in the league in the way that I think people maybe want him to. And I get it because he's a super fun player and he plays hard and it's fun and he's easy to root for. But let's talk about another college big at Just Invisible 6 says Henry Vasar, center 1, North Carolina center. So where you at on this one? Henry Vasar, center 1.
Who do we consider like true centers right
My
now?
center 1 right now is Ade Mara because I don't like Quaintance to me is not a center.
Okay. So like Badunga, Gumba, Mara. None of these.
I don't think Flory's Flory on the boundary for me. Gongba I think is a center. Mara is a center. And then it's a really deep center class, and I think you can make a case for Vasar. I wouldn't have him as center 1, but I think as high as like center 3 or 4. I think Gongba and Mara I think are pretty clearly my two favorite center types in this class, but Vasar is really impressive.
This is a great take. I don't agree with this take, but this is like, if you were truly wanting to ride the line between like genuinely good take and hot take, this is it. I
agree.
Like, Vasar at 1 could be really, really good take in 5 years.
I agree. Absolutely.
Or it's going to be like he was close anyway, because I mean, the 3-point stuff is really, really moving. I as well probably rate at least Mara higher, but he's like in his own, he's just such an absurd like guy in general. So
it's a really good center class to me. Like there's a lot of guys in that range. I like Malachi Moreno a lot, even though Kentucky's been terrible. He's been awesome. Like I like Masamba Diop at Arizona State. He's been really interesting. We mentioned Privas earlier. I'm not totally forgetting about Nate Biddle, even though like his injury history is just really scary. And I think that would probably scare teams off, which I totally understand. But yeah, Vasar, I'm not like so crazy about him on defense, but genuine dribbling and playmaking skill. Like the 4-5 pick and rolls that they run with Vasar as the handler and Wilson as the roller are cinema. And I'm like, yeah, I can totally see him doing that in the NBA. Absolutely. So I'm not absolutely at Vasar center 1, but I actually totally agree. Like this is a great balance between like, it is definitely a hot take, but it's like a good one to take. It's a good hot take to fall back on.
I agree on the defensive stuff. Like he's not an absurd defensive prospect, but there's tons of guys like this in the NBA right now too, that are backup 5s that are score slanted and can do some fun stuff with the ball and shoot the 3 and they're serviceable players. So I don't think he's a
bad defensive player, to be clear. I just think he's not like
tough. He's physical. Like he gets in there and
well. I think his reactions contesting around the rim are pretty good. Like he's just like not particularly athletic or mobile, which obviously hurts. But hey, like there are a lot of useful NBA players like that, and especially in a center class like this, where there aren't any just like obvious stud Wemby, Mobley, Chet type players. Like it's totally a world where one of these elite college players who have kind of translatable skills, like it's like, yeah, everyone loves Max Reynaud, but like, what if Max Reynaud could like really score in the post, was strong and could like defend and rebound? It's like, that's a guy who I think could legit be like a good player in the NBA soon. But I think I'm going to call it. They have a couple more I had so many more questions. I'll definitely do more of these types of videos, but Derek, thank you so much for all of your generous time. This was great. Anything you want to plug or shout out, tell the people, now is your time.
Yeah, on Twitter at DParkOK, YouTube Derek-Parker, coming out with stuff there every day. Going to start doing scouting reports now that we have enough sample to really do it. So excited to keep diving into this class. I appreciate you having me on, man.
course. Derek does some great scouting reports. If you're itching for some content that's a little more edited and produced than mine, I will absolutely vouch and direct to Derek. I like that you're a Richie Saunders enjoyer. I was excited when you dropped that one because
it's hard not to be a Richie Saunders enjoyer. I don't know that he's going to be, an NBA star, but it's hard not to like him at least.
He's so good. I think he's going to stick. His defense is awesome. My Richie Saunders, like if you could prop bet on like rookie deflection leaders, I would put money on Richie Saunders, but I'm not that sick in the brain. And
I had the privilege of watching him in Stillwater a few weeks ago. Super
hell
fun.
Yeah.
It lived up to the hype. Him and Dybantsa both.
I was going to say, how was that AJ live viewing? Because I got to see him live once in high school, and he was pretty underwhelming, but like it's high school ball.
Yeah, it was revealing, I will say. Like he's just a different type of mover, man. Like 6'9" to be able to have the flexibility that he has is crazy. It feels like a secret weapon right now in terms of like top tier prospects, just having 100%. Like legit flexibility. And he is, 99th percentile in that regard.
And like Darren, people be like, oh, Darren Peterson gets the Shea comps. And like, I definitely think there are shades, but like AJ has Shea ankles. Like he has the Shea flexibility. Sure. It's like he doesn't have a lot of the other Shea stuff, but like I watch him like bend his shoulder around a guy and like kind of like do one of his crazy step throughs when it looks like he should be like in a very painful position. I'm like,
he's going to be an unbelievable foul drawer at the next level. Like all timer, top 5.
Also, he's also a good one because anyone who's like, oh, I like college basketball better because of this, like the lack of grifting and star whistle. Like, please go watch a BYU game or like a Kansas game. I think Darren is very guilty of this as well. But like, go watch a BYU game and come back and tell me that you're not going to be annoyed about the kind of cheap fouls that get called. And they're legit fouls. I think AJ just
for sure.
We're obviously not saying this is like a negative. I think it's
definitely not.
Obviously defined positive as a prospect. He legitimately is like so good at like reading when defenders kind of like have their hand like stuck in his chest and he'll rip up and get a foul in the way that everyone hates. But like, hey, get your hand off him and then we'll happen.
Yep. 100%. And again, to do it at 6'9" is pretty different. We don't see that come through the draft ranks a lot. So
yeah, I got to get to some more live stuff. I saw Steinbach live against UCLA last weekend, which was fun. I mean, both of those teams are painful to watch, but Steinbach is just like to watch him people move in real life is very fun. He's just an absolute tank, which is always cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks everyone for watching. And if for some reason you're still here at the end, thank you very much. Like, comment, subscribe, go show Derek some love and have a good day, y'all.